We all remember 1978. We fell in love, danced, and mended our broken hearts to the exact same melodies. You've heard these records a million times over the decades, so you probably think you know them inside out. Well, truth be told, the real secrets were never played on the radio. Today, we are counting down. You know these 10 songs from 1978, but not their stories. Settle in and grab a warm cup of coffee because the painful reality behind our first track will completely change how you hear it forever. Number 10, Stayin' Alive by Bee Gees. Have you ever noticed how that famous drum beat sounds almost unnaturally steady? Truth be told, it actually came from a place of sudden heartbreak. The Bee Gees were holed up in a freezing French chateau trying to get an album done. Right in the middle of things, their drummer, Dennis Byron, got the devastating news that his mother had just passed away. He dropped everything and flew back to England to mourn. Left without a heartbeat for the track, the crew tried using an electronic organ, but it sounded completely soulless. They had to improvise. The producers pulled 2 bars of real drums they'd already recorded for Night Fever. They spliced the tape ends together, literally running this physical loop over a microphone stand to keep it spinning across the room. It was a desperate fix, yet that fragile little piece of tape gave them a beat that was human enough to feel warm, but precise enough to keep the groove going forever. They jokingly credited this makeshift rhythm to an imaginary drummer named Bernard Lupe, and industry folks actually wasted months trying to hire him. But looking back, there is something deeply moving here. Born from a son's grief, that exact 103 beat per minute loop is now the medical standard for CPR chest compressions. That taped-together beat literally saves lives today. I guess the title meant everything. Number 9, You're the One That I Want by John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. It's funny how the biggest hits are sometimes the ones nobody wanted. The director of Grease, Randall Kleiser, absolutely loathed this track. It wasn't in the original Broadway play, and he felt the music sounded way too modern for a movie set in the 1950s. He tried his hardest to cut it, but he simply didn't have the studio clout to stop it from happening. You know, behind those tight black pants and that confident swagger on screen, Olivia was actually terrified. At 29 years old, she was convinced she looked far too old to play an innocent high schooler. She was so worried about embarrassing herself that she did something unheard of for an established star. She begged for a screen test. She needed to see herself on camera first, fully prepared to walk away and hand the role to someone else if she looked foolish. It was John Travolta who gently advocated for her, insisting she was his only Sandy. To be fair, history proved him right, as the song the director despised ended up selling over 15 million copies. We lost Olivia recently, but looking back, maybe her hidden insecurity is what made her performance feel so genuine. She wasn't just acting, she was a woman taking a frightening leap of faith, and we loved her for it. Real quick, if you're enjoying this trip back to 78, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with an old friend. I'd also love to read your own memories in the comments below. All right, let's get back to the countdown. Number 8, Just the Way You Are by Billy Joel.
I'll take you just the way you are.
You'd think writing a melody for your wife's birthday would be the ultimate romantic gesture. Well, real life is rarely that poetic. When Billy played this tender tune for his first wife, Elizabeth, her alleged response wasn't a tearful hug. She simply asked, "Do I get the publishing rights too?" Talk about killing the mood.
I never want to work that hard.
To be fair, Billy himself hated the track. He complained it was a gloppy ballad, the kind of syrupy stuff you only endure at weddings. His band agreed, dismissing it as a silly chick song. They were fully prepared to leave it off the album entirely.
Will it take till you believe in me?
Thankfully, their producer pulled a fast one. He invited Linda Ronstadt and Phoebe Snow, who were working in the studio next door, to come take a listen. Ronstadt flatly told the guys they were completely out of their minds if they dropped it. Joel, admittedly captivated by how pretty Ronstadt was, just shrugged and agreed to keep it.
Same old someone that I knew.
That marriage ultimately didn't survive, and maybe that harsh comment about royalties was a quiet warning sign. But for those of us who have weathered our own heartbreak over the decades, there is bittersweet comfort here. The couple eventually broke apart, but that rare snapshot of pure, unconditional love they briefly shared still survives every time the needle hits the vinyl. Number 7, Shadow Dancing by Andy Gibb.
I was chasing your direction. I was telling you no lies.
Let's be honest, 1978 belonged entirely to the Gibb family. But this specific track was born during a rather embarrassing chapter for the older brothers. Barry, Robin, and Morris were stuck in Los Angeles, filming that dreadful Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band movie, a cinematic disaster most of us try hard to forget. Young Andy came to town just to hang out and visit his exhausted siblings. One evening, while taking a much-needed break from the set, the four of them just sat around relaxing. According to Andy, it took them barely 10 minutes to start harmonizing and hammering out the chorus. What makes this casual living room session so incredibly precious is that it remains the single time all four brothers actually shared a writing credit on a piece of music. It easily dominated the charts, making Andy the very first solo artist to have his first 3 singles hit number 1. The record labels couldn't print copies fast enough. We all know the tragic ending to Andy's story, as he left us far too early. Yet when I hear this rhythm today, I choose not to think about his later heartbreaks. Instead, I picture 4 brothers simply sitting in a room, laughing and making magic together, long before the heavy toll of fame broke their circle. Number 6, You Light Up My Life by Debby Boone. You probably thought this was the ultimate romantic ballad. Behind the scenes, the recording session was actually a nightmare. The track was initially recorded for a movie by a professional soprano, but when it came time to release the radio single, the producers suddenly swapped her out for a completely inexperienced Debby Boone. Truth be told, the songwriter Joe Brooks was ruthlessly demanding. He forced Boone to sing over the exact same instrumental tape used for the film, demanding she mimic the previous singer flawlessly. He pushed the terrified young woman so hard, she actually broke down crying right there in the vocal booth.
Adrift on the water.
But here is where things take a beautiful turn. To survive the grueling ordeal, Boone secretly shifted her focus. She didn't sing those lyrics to a handsome man. Being deeply religious, she sang every single word as a quiet, desperate prayer to God, just to find the strength to finish the take. Brooks despised her spiritual interpretation, but he couldn't control what was in her heart.
I'm turning for home.
The record dominated the charts for 10 straight weeks, and unsurprisingly, Boone firmly refused to ever work with him again. For those of us who have endured cruel bosses or dark times, her secret rebellion is deeply comforting. She took a session born in tears and privately turned it into her own hymn of survival. Number 5. Grease by Frankie Valli. You'd think the title track of a classic 50s movie was universally loved on set. Well, the director actually wanted it thrown in the trash. He complained the modern disco beat completely ruined the vintage vibe, but the producer insisted on keeping it, though he barred the Bee Gees from singing their own lyrics to avoid sounding like a leftover copy of Saturday Night Fever. So, they called in a familiar voice from our youth. Frankie Valli was chosen because his signature falsetto perfectly mirrored Barry Gibb's. But here is the painful truth most fans never knew. While he was confidently hitting those notes in the studio, Valli was privately suffering from a severe bone condition in his ears. He was going completely deaf. When he stood at the microphone to record what would become a massive smash, he could barely hear his own voice. Imagine the sheer terror of losing the very gift that defined your life. Yet, he refused to give up. Valli relied entirely on pure muscle memory and the physical vibrations in his throat to guide him through the melody. The next time you tap your foot to that upbeat movie intro, remember the man singing it was fighting a terrifying private battle, delivering joy from inside a fading, quiet world. Number 4. Boogie Oogie Oogie by A Taste of Honey. Have you ever faced a crowd that flat out refused to give you a chance? For Janice Marie Johnson and Hazel Payne, the women fronting A Taste of Honey, this was an exhausting reality. They spent years grinding through tough gigs at military bases. During one particular show at an Air Force club, the audience sat completely frozen. The crowd simply couldn't stomach the idea of two women confidently leading a band, choosing to just stare at them with cold indifference. Sexism is a stubborn thing. Instead of quietly packing up her bass guitar, Johnson got angry. She grabbed the microphone, looked directly at those dismissive faces, and fired back. She announced that if they thought they were too cool to dance, she had news for them. Everyone in the room had to move, with absolutely no exceptions. That spontaneous scolding turned out to be incredibly valuable. Back in her hotel room, she quickly scribbled down those exact words. In 1979, the music industry was genuinely stunned when these women took home the Grammy for Best New Artist, actually beating heavyweights like Dire Straits. For any woman from our generation who had to work twice as hard just to get half the respect, this upbeat track is secretly a victory lap. They didn't let the prejudice break them. They simply made their critics dance to their tune. Number 3. 3 Times a Lady by Commodores, Lionel Richie.
3 times a lady.
Let's clear up a stubborn myth right away. People always claim the lyrics came from a husband whispering, "I love you, I cherish you." The real origin is actually much more grounded. Lionel Richie was attending his parents' 37th wedding anniversary. His father stood up and offered a beautifully simple toast to his mother, Alberta. He thanked her for being exactly 3 things: a great lady, a great mother, and a great friend.
I love you.
That quiet display of lifelong loyalty struck Lionel deeply. He realized, with a twinge of guilt, that he had never properly thanked his own wife for her daily support. He retreated to his room and sketched out this gentle waltz. But surprisingly, he didn't want his own group to record it. The Commodores were famous for heavy funk grooves. Richie honestly imagined Frank Sinatra singing it, and almost tossed the sheet music aside.
You shared
Luckily, their producer stepped in, bluntly telling the band they had to sing it themselves. It quickly became their very first global smash. As we get older, we understand that true romance isn't about grand, dramatic gestures. It is about weathering the storms together. Richie took a lovely, honest tribute from an aging husband and turned it into a warm thank you note for couples everywhere who have stayed the course. Number 2, I Love the Nightlife by Alicia Bridges. Sometimes an artist's vision gets completely hijacked by accident. When Alicia Bridges penned this track, she wasn't thinking about flashing lights or mirror balls. She genuinely believed she was writing a gritty Memphis soul record, actually imagining it as something Al Green might croon on a slow, smoky evening. Her producer was also actively trying to dodge the dance club label, insisting the heavy groove was purely rhythm and blues. He even forced a title change, burying the original name Disco Round down to a mere subtitle just to distance the tune from the nightclub craze. But the music business has a funny way of making its own plans. A seasoned publisher heard the tape and immediately spotted the hidden dance floor potential. He quietly ordered an extended 12-inch club remix, and that tweaked version absolutely exploded. There was no bitter studio drama or screaming matches here. It was simply a hilarious case of mixed signals. The writer heard soul, the producer heard R&B, but the publisher heard disco, and disco ultimately won. Bridges didn't spend the next 40 years chasing the spotlight. She eventually stepped back to live a quiet, normal life. Yet she gave our generation a permanent weekend anthem. Looking back, how often do our own carefully laid plans turn into something completely different? Sometimes you just have to shrug, embrace the unexpected detour, and keep on dancing. Number 1, Baby Come Back by Player. We've all suffered through breakups, but rarely do two broken hearts collide at once. Peter Beckett and J.C. Crowley were both drowning in misery when they met at a Hollywood party. Beckett's wife had just moved back to England, while Crowley was surviving his own messy split. Instead of crying into their drinks, the two miserable strangers channeled all that raw emotion into the ultimate plea for a second chance. I was wrong, and I just can't live without you. Getting a record deal usually involves mailing out cheap cassettes and praying. These guys took an absolutely exhausting route. They literally hauled their full drum kit and heavy keyboards straight into corporate label offices to play live for the executives. That sheer desperation worked, but their luck was still terrible. Their very first label went completely bankrupt right before the album was released. They had to be rescued by a rival company just to get the tune on the radio.
Trying to keep up a smile that hides a tear.
It dominated early 1978, becoming the soundtrack for anyone begging for forgiveness. But time has a funny way of healing youthful drama. Decades later, an interviewer finally asked Beckett the burning question. Did he ever reconnect with the girl who inspired all that beautiful agony? His answer was delightfully blunt. No, thank God. Sometimes the best thing to come out of a broken heart isn't a tearful reunion, but a really great royalty check.
I wish to God that you were here.
It's funny, isn't it? We spent our youth driving around and dancing to these records, completely unaware of the tears, the stubbornness, or the sheer luck that created them. It turns out our musical heroes were just regular folks fighting their own silent battles, just like we were. Which of these backstage secrets caught you off guard today? Or maybe you have your own special memory tied to one of these tracks. I'd love to hear your stories down in the comments. I truly enjoy reading them with my morning coffee. If this trip down memory lane brought back a piece of your past, please leave a like and subscribe so we can uncover more hidden histories together. Until next time, keep those old records spinning and take good care of yourselves.
World of people, there's only you.